Carl Sagan famously described science as a candle in the dark. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller's film Project Hail Mary, adapted from Andy Weir's novel, asks the one question: what happens when the dark starts eating the candle? Today, I want to show you how this film portrays science, not as a pile of facts, but as a process. Though its two central characters, Ryland Grace and Rocky, and how their unlikely partnership changed the way I think about what scientists actually do. Ryland Grace, played by Ryan Gosling, is a junior high science teacher and a former molecular biologist who wakes up alone, with amnesia on a spacecraft 12 light years from home. He slowly pieces together why a microorganism called astrophage is feeding on the sun, deeming it fast enough to trigger a global ice age within decades. The Hail Mary is humanity's one-shot, one-way mission to Tau Ceti, the only nearby star that seems immune to find out why. There he meets Rocky, an engineer from 40 Eridani system, a five-legged ammonia-breathing alien who perceives the world through sound, and the sole survivor of his own crew. His planet is dying from the very same infection. Two species, one problem, and neither can solve it alone. The film builds its whole story on a single carefully worked out scientific idea. Astrophage is a single-celled organism that absorbs stellar energy and stores it as mass. It breathes in the carbon dioxide atmosphere of Venus, then migrates back to the Sun along the Petrova line, which is a faint red arc of infrared light that becomes the film's signature image. It holds its internal temperature of exactly 96.415 degrees Celsius, a clue Grace exploits over and over again. What makes this portrayal interesting is Astrophage's dual role. It is the villain. However, the thing is starving the sun, and simultaneously the breakthrough, the most energy-dense fuel imaginable. The only thing that makes the Hail Mary's journey possible. This film is telling us that scientific knowledge is never simply good or bad. The same discovery can threaten a civilization and save it. Grace almost never gets a movie star eureka moment. When he gets is a loop. Observe, hypothesize, predict, experiment, and analyze, and usually be wrong. He works out where he is by measuring gravity. He finds Astrophage's critical temperature through methodical lab work in scenes of film stages inside a practical hand-built spacecraft, set rather than a green screen void, which makes the science feel a real physical labor. And when the predator organism Tau amoeba breaches its tanks and destroys his fuel, the disaster itself becomes data, nitrogen tolerance, tested and bred for one generation at a time. This is the philosopher Karl Popper's picture of science in action. Knowledge advancing not by proving ourselves right, but by systematically trying to prove ourselves wrong. This film portrays failure not as the opposite of science, but its raw material. The cross-species collaboration is where the film's portrayal becomes genuinely original. Grace and Rocky share no language, no biology, and not even the same senses. Rocky sees with sonar, so they start with the one thing any technological species must share: mathematics and evidence. Musical chords became words. Question becomes the most important word in their vocabulary. And it matters how the film realizes this. Rocky isn't a digital effect, but a practical puppet performed on set by James Ortiz. Gosling is genuinely reacting to something physically present, so the trust the two scientists build feels tangible rather than composite. Their skills interlock. Grace brings biology and hypothesis-driven thinking. Rocky brings extraordinary engineering and materials. His Xenonite making their shared experiments possible. This film claims is quietly radical. The scientific method is a universal language, and evidence can build trust even between species that evolved around different stars. Importantly, the film is not naive about science. The bright side is obvious: curiosity, cooperation, and Grace's final choice to give up his ride home to save Rocky's species. But the forewarning is there too. In Sandra Hiller's Ever's Threat, the administrator who conscripts labor, overrides governments, and sends Grace on the mission against his will. This film celebrates the scientific process while warning us about what institutions may do with science when they panic. That balance is its most honest move. This film landed at a very specific moment for me. I'm 2 years into a study plan built almost entirely on coding and mathematics, aimed at quantitative derivatives trading. And deep in that grind, it's easy to see the math as an abstract hurdle, a barrier to entry. Watching Grace and Rocky bridge a species-level gap using nothing but fundamental mathematics reframed that completely. This is the universal language I described a moment ago, pointed back at my own life. They decode an alien mind. Building predictive trading models means decoding markets, reducing chaos into structural, verifiable logic. And Grace's loop from earlier, hypothesize, test, be wrong, revise, is exactly what that learning feels like. This film validates the frustration. Failed attempts aren't wasted effort, they're data. So the reminder I carry out of this film is that when the stakes are absolute, reigniting a dying sun or trusting a model with real capital, rigorous, verifiable maths is the most reliable tool we have for organizing chaos into structure. Project Hail Mary portrays science as a candle two very different hands carried together. And that image, more than any plot twist, is what I'll keep. These are my references. Thank you for watching.